our gut health is directly tied to fat loss, directly tied to energy, mood, and hormones.
If your gut's inflamed, we're going to see inflammation everywhere. When the toxins get stored in that fat, it changes the structure of the fat, making it even harder to break down. It's crazy how much it can affect your digestion. For some people, it'll affect it quicker or more extreme than others. Today, we are covering all things gut health and what the symptoms that you're experiencing can tell you about what's preventing you from being able to lose fat and also what to do about it. Welcome back to the Metabolism and Menopause podcast, where we help you understand this new body of yours. Maybe you've started to experience some hormonal symptoms, maybe you're post-menopause, but we know now that your body is inherently different, and those old fat loss strategies just are not cutting anymore. So it is time to learn how to work with this new body instead of against it, so you can open up those fat-burning pathways, get your energy back, and feel confident again. And so today's episode, like I mentioned, is all about gut health. This is actually a recording of a webinar that we hosted in our community that was just way too good not to share. We got so much great feedback. There's a guide that goes along with it as well. So if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, please reach out and we can send that out to you. I hope you enjoy this as much as our community did. Okay, so today, as you can tell, I'm not in my office. I'm in a hotel room in Austin. I'm flying home tomorrow from a conference. But that does not mean that we don't keep doing all the things. So we are here and we are doing our live tonight. I have Coach Hannah and we are talking all things about decoding your gut health, like for your fat loss, what it can tell you, what changes you need to make. And specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about poop today too, because this is something Coach Hannah and I talk about a lot, actually. The first time I introduced Taylor to the Bristol Stool chart. Oh yes, see, if you see Hannah, I gave her a poop for a gift one time.
It's so cute. I love it.
Because it felt appropriate. We talk about poop all the time. But one time I taught Taylor about the Bristol Stool chart, which we're going to talk a little bit about today at one point. And now he's like, today I was a 3. I'm like, you don't have to tell me every day. I'm not coaching you. It's fine. But also, he's a better pooper than I am, so then I get a little bit agitated. So now he doesn't share with me as much. So today we are going to go there and talk about poop, and really decoding just fat health, or your gut health for your fat loss, and break down what your poop can actually tell you, because it can tell you a lot about digestion, about hormones, about metabolism. It's like a daily report card, to be honest, and you don't need fancy labs to get some insight. There's a lot that we can tell just by your daily habits. And so you grab your tea, grab your water, and we're going to normalize this conversation. If you ever were to coaching with us, we're probably going to ask you about your poop at some point. And so this is important for us to talk about, especially in menopause, because, you know, your gut and your hormones in your body are talking to each other all the time. And so your digestion can really change, which shifts in estrogen and progesterone, which I'm sure you've probably experienced at some point now. And so we're going to just dive right in. So Hannah, I will let you take her away.
Yeah. So why does your poop matter? So our gut health is directly tied to fat loss, directly tied to energy, mood, and hormones. When our gut bacteria are balanced and our digestion is on track, our body then can eliminate waste and excess estrogen more efficiently. So when this is the case, that means that we're going to have less bloating, fewer PMS symptoms, and overall much better metabolic health as well. Regular bowel movements and a happy gut are our key factors in allowing fat-burning pathways to truly turn on.
And a lot of this has to do with like inflammation too, right? We know if your gut's inflamed, we're going to see inflammation everywhere. It's going to block your fat-burning pathways, which tells your body we have enough left to store, even though you're doing the classic eat less, moving more, and doing all the things. And so then we look on the flip side. If your gut is quite sluggish, things are just slow, you're kind of constipated, you feel kind of gassy, backed up. If you feel inflamed and just you can tell something is off, your body can definitely hold on to more fat. And so we're kind of stuck in that storage pathway. And it's one of our body's ways of almost protecting itself when detox and elimination aren't working well, because we need somewhere to store those toxins and those things that our body isn't eliminating. And so it stores fat because it's safer for us to store those toxins in fat than to have it floating around in our body, and then it damages all the other organs that we don't want that to happen. However, then when the toxins get stored in that fat, it changes the structure of the fat, making it even harder to break down. And so how you can see how, addressing your gut health will definitely help you, allow your body to release the fat because it doesn't need it there anymore to store the toxins to try and protect you. So we're going to talk about what to really look for with your bowel movements. And so I would say everyone's probably wondering this, but honestly, probably most of you are not wondering this. But the question we're going to answer here is, what should your poop actually look like? And so we're going to point to number one, which is your shape and your consistency, which is going to be the Bristol stool chart. You can look that up. It is everywhere, and it is super, super helpful.
Yeah, so we could share our screen and show you the Bristol stool chart, which is in our document here. But I'm just going to quickly explain them. So the Bristol stool chart has types 1 through 7. So type 1 and 2 are those hard little pellets or lumpy logs. And this is constipation. We probably have all been here at some point in our lives, some of us more than others, unfortunately. And if we are falling pretty regularly or, irregularly with constipation being present in the 1 to 2 range, you're likely dehydrated, low in fiber, and or your gut motility is sluggish. Wonderful. Yeah, so we're talking here about those first two, like really tiny little pellets, very constipated. That type 2 is like, it's painful. It's usually uncomfortable on its way out and really hard to pass. And you can often feel like something's inside before it comes out. This is classified altogether as constipation, and we don't want this. Typically, when we have this, we are, our bowel movements are not complete. We don't feel satisfied after them. We are more likely to absorb things like when they are sitting in our intestines and in our colon for a long time. And if we can't pass them well, that just makes it more likely to happen. And next we have types 3 and 4. And this is where we have our healthy and optimal range. So these are going to be your smooth, sausage-shaped, easy to pass bowel movements. Really, like, this is what we are shooting for, the gold standard of poops. If you are here, you are good to go. Give yourself a pat on the back. Say, oof, thank goodness I don't have to change anything that I'm doing to get better poops, because my poops are telling me that we're doing all right. And then we have types 5 through 7. So this is where we move into the looser stool category, so softer or watery. And what this means is that food is moving through your body too quickly. And similar to food moving through too slow, like with types 1 and 2, when food moves through us too quickly, we actually can't absorb the nutrients from those foods. Why are we eating foods if we can't absorb the nutrients? They're pretty important things that we need to absorb from those foods. This could be related to stress. It could be related to too much caffeine. It could be related to food sensitivities. And it could also be related to low stomach acid. If you are somebody who has had your gallbladder removed, you may notice that you experience types 5 through 7 more consistently, especially if you have a higher fat meal, because our body has a harder time breaking down fats. So,
and like things to think about too is like, I told this story on, I think it was a Q&A call we did with our clients not that long ago, about like when you have like a very high stress state. So I'll tell you a story about my wonderful husband. This is only one on our first trip together. And I've had a lot of trauma in my past. And so our flight got delayed because like we landed and then we were going to miss our flight and all this stuff. And so they were going to put us on another flight. And Taylor is like losing his mind. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to give these people something to talk about. Like, I'm going to have peace in my mind. And I am instantly like in trauma state. Like, oh my gosh, this is how it was with my dad. This is how it was with my ex. I'm going to have to apologize and try and like, keep the peace and like apologize to whoever he's talking to. And so we're walking through the airport and he's just like letting off steam. I don't know this. I'm like legitimately thinking he's going to start yelling at someone. And my stress response, as most of you guys know, is pretty low, my tolerance. And so my body's triggered right away. And I all of a sudden feel like I'm going to throw up. I'm like super bloated and I feel like I'm going to poop my pants. And so what happens is when you're in a high stress state, what happens is that blood flow goes away from your gut. And so your body can't digest food anymore. It's going to your brain, into your arms and legs to fight the bear, run away from the bear. This is also why all of a sudden you get quite hot, because all of a sudden blood flow starts moving to like your arms, your legs, it heats you up. So I'm like walking through the airport with my backpack and like my luggage, and I'm like pulling up my pant legs, my leggings, trying to get like as much air because I'm like dripping in sweat. I'm like taking off my sweater as we're walking, and I'm like, I'm gonna throw up. Oh my gosh. And so what happens is because of this stress response, it actually slows down digestion in the upper portion of your digestive tract, but then speeds it up in the bottom half of your digestive tract, AKA this not good situation where you don't want to be in. We're in the middle of the airport. Anyways, we get to the like people, and my husband is like, sweet as honey, is just like chatting up this person, is so kind, so grateful. And I'm like, you just messed me up for the next 24 hours. And so I'm trying to explain to him what happened to my body, because this is me. And he's like, oh, I just need to get like my frustration out. I would never do that to someone. And I'm like, well, I know that now, but like now I'm junk for the next 24 hours. My body just like perceived this as this giant trauma state. So I look like I'm like 5 months pregnant. I like can't eat. I'm so nauseous. I like have to go to the restroom. Like I am just a mess. And so this is where then after that whole situation, then I'm constipated like the next couple of days because A, travel, and B, I had the stress response. So digestion slowed down, results in constipation later. And so this is where if you're someone who has a lot of stress in your life and these kinds of things happen often, or your body gets triggered by things, even if you don't think you'll be triggered, like I was very aware my body was going into a trauma state. But a lot of us aren't. We're just go all the time. And so this can happen to you without even like realizing that it's happening, or like this is what is happening. And so I always like to share that story because there are people out there who can like relate to that, or that's happened to them. And I just always think it's important to share that because it's normal. Like that is your body responding to stress. It's crazy how much it can affect your digestion. For some people, it'll affect it quicker or more extreme than others. So my husband would never actually yell at a stranger for something that's not their fault. Learned that great characteristic for him to have. I just wish I would have known that before that situation came up. Okay, so that is like consistency, your Bristol stool chart. Then we go into color because your color tells you a story too. So medium to dark brown, good. That's the color we want to see. If it's very pale or it's like clay colored, it might mean that you have liver or gallbladder that isn't releasing enough bile. And so this is something we want to look at right away and support those systems in your body. If it's green, it means that food passed through too quickly in your GI system, or that you've eaten a lot more greens lately than you normally do. If it is black or tar-like, that can signal bleeding higher up in your GI tract. This is where it is incredibly important to call your doctor if you are experiencing that. That's actually how we found out my mom had colon cancer, actually. So always get that checked out. And if it is bright red, sometimes that's hemorrhoids. However, always worth checking with your provider when it's very black or it is bright red. That's something to be aware of. Also, funny story about Taylor. He's going to kill me if he knew I was sharing this, so we will never tell him. But when he went to Hawaii as a teenager with his family, maybe he would have been like 13. He didn't know that drinking copious amounts of Pepto will also turn your poop black. And so he was taking Pepto because he wasn't feeling so good. And then his poop was black. And so when you Google black poop, it tells you that you're dying. And so that he had to go get checked out by a doctor. And he said it was the worst experience ever because they had to do like a manual check. He's like, Polynesians do not have small fingers, Steph. And that's like, well, now you know. That'll never happen again. So also, fun fact, Pepto will turn your poop black. So just,
Yep.
any of that experience if you don't have to experience that.
And a lot of Oreos. If you eat a lot of Oreos, that will also turn your poop black. So don't worry. Just think, did you eat Oreos? Did you drink a lot of Pepto? Or do we need to worry about it?
Oh, and Deborah said her husband ate beets, and the next day he thought he was dying. And now he knows, but it scared the heck out of him. Yes, beets will do that too. So lots of things, but it's nice to know in advance because Google is not always your best friend, let's be honest.
Dr. Google is not forgiving.
No.
It's actually really funny that Taylor had a, poop thing in Hawaii too, because right before Jeff was diagnosed with UC, we were in Hawaii and that's when things got like really bad. So he also had some, had to visit.
Going to Hawaii was when he made me almost poop my pants in the airport so there's something about that first trip to Hawaii.
Something about Hawaii.
Be prepared. Be prepared.
Okay. Excuse me. Moving on to number 4 of things to look for in your poop. And what I could tell you, we have undigested food. So if you see pieces, sorry, I was just holding Munchkin. Now there's cat hair just like stuck to me.
Right.
Don't mind me. If you see pieces of veggies or seeds, those kind of things are not always bad. Some plant fiber doesn't break down in our digestive tract, so it just passes out the other side. I guarantee everybody who's ever eaten corn has seen corn in their poop. Very normal. But if you're seeing large chunks of food that are not things like corn, seeds, and certain veggies, and you're seeing it often, what this could mean is that you have low stomach acid or poor enzyme activity, neither of which are great because we have supposed to have a very well-balanced, gut process from the time food goes into our mouth to the time it comes out the other side. So if something like stomach acid or enzymes are out of whack, that can lead to issues in other areas of our digestive tract as well. So if we have low stomach acid or poor enzymes, we are not breaking down food well, and therefore we're missing nutrients. Another thing to think of before necessarily going to gut health, though, a little caveat here on undigested food. Are you chewing your food enough? Because a lot of us are not chewing our food enough if we are eating distracted, and so we just are swallowing large chunks of food, and it's just way too much work for our body to do all of that. Because your teeth are supposed to do a lot of that work and your saliva is supposed to do a lot of that work too. So just think haven't been eating really rushed recently. Okay, maybe I don't need to worry, but pay attention. If it keeps happening and you've slowed down, okay, maybe I've got some low stomach acid or some poor enzymes and I'm not digesting my food very well. Because when we don't break down food, we can then become deficient in the nutrients from the foods that we're not breaking down very well. And that can lead to some more gut, hormone, joint, mental health, and even mitochondrial troubles down the road. And all of those things, we want to avoid creating more trouble with them. So if you're noticing these things, take a beat. If you've got a coach, bring it up to your coach. If you're like, hey, this is a pattern I'm realizing. Is it a certain food that you see? Maybe you stop eating that food for a little while, give yourself a break. But if it's lots of different foods, slow down. If slowing down is not helping, add some apple cider vinegar to your day. See if we can increase that acidity, even lemon juice, adding lemon and other citrus to your foods and your drinks as well. And potentially adding a digestive enzyme down the road if these things are not helping.
The next one is floating or oily stool. I remember this happening for 3 days and I messaged Kariana. I think I might have messaged you too. And I was like, I think I'm dying. So if your poop floats, especially with an oily film, and that's what I was concerned about, or drops that look like grease, it might mean that you're not digesting fats properly. So this can be due to low bile flow or gallbladder issues. Very common in menopausal women, unfortunately, because estrogen, of course, another role that she has is affecting our bile production. So it's super common for those who've had their gallbladder removed or do not take a daily ox bile supplement to support that fat digestion. Honestly, for me, it lasted like 3 days and then it was fine. And so I don't know what was going on, but we just like focused on, hydration, whole foods, and then we were good. Who knows? Honestly, it was probably stress induced in some capacity because that's what everything is for me these days. But yeah, it's not being able to digest fats properly. So sometimes it's just like we're eating a lot more processed foods than we're, realizing most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you mentioned with stress, like I think this is just a note to go back as we go through these, further down numbers, go back to number 1, which is like the Bristol stool chart. What are the things that we talked about there, right? Like if you have loose stool, it could be very much stress induced. And so, okay, have I been stressed? If the answer is yes, okay, don't panic. We always want to check the things that we have control over. Don't panic is a great thing to remember when we're talking about bowels, because one time does not mean, like seeing something for one time does not mean that you are broken. Seeing something for a few times still doesn't mean you are broken. If we pay attention, we can make changes and we can fix things. So don't panic. Easier said than done. I think all of us, my first pee after I eat beets, even if I'm eating beets for a whole week, the next day I'm like, Henny, you're fine. Don't panic. Okay, so this next thing that we're going to talk about is frequency. So like, how often should we be pooping? How often should we go? And this is something that I have heard so many people say so many different things. And the goal is 1 to 2 bowel movements per day. And they should feel complete and satisfying. So if we can have 1 to 2 complete and satisfying, you are very much in a healthy and normal range. If you're only going a few times a week, this puts your body in that position of reabsorbing toxins and hormones like estrogen back into the body, and this reabsorption of toxins and hormones and things that are trying to leave your body slows down metabolism and slows down fat loss. Main thing to remember here is that regular bowel movements equals regular detox. And so 1 to 2 bowel movements per day, complete and satisfying feeling. If you're like, okay, but I go to the bathroom 3 times a day and it's always complete and satisfying, like it's not an emergency, great, that's fine. This is going to be a little bit different for everybody. If you're like, oh, I go 1 to 2 times per day, but it's like they're always emergencies. They're never satisfying. They're kind of uncomfortable. All right, let's backtrack here. Let's assess these earlier numbers, like what could be happening. So yes, 1 to 2 bowel movements per day is the ideal, but remember it's the complete and the satisfying that are key. Some people I know, they're like, yeah, I have 4 beautiful bowel movements a day. I'm like, great, I'm happy for you. They're in the healthy range for like, shape and consistency and color. And it's like, beautiful. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about things that don't need to be stressed about here.
Okay, so we've spoken many times about the importance of like various phases of detox. If you've been here for a while, you've probably heard that. And we can't we can't understate how important that is, because you can have wonderful, great stage 1 detoxification in your liver, but if you're not pooping regularly or completely, you're just going to reabsorb those toxins, those excess estrogens back into your body, putting so much more stress on your liver. And we know that when your liver is stressed out or is like getting quite a big load that it's needing to like constantly have to do, your blood sugars really, really struggle, because your liver is a very big player in regulating that and like releasing sugars into your bloodstream. And so it can really throw things off. And so on the other hand, if we're going all the time and like it's like urgency, that can mean that we're dealing with like inflammation in your gut. We've got some food intolerances maybe, or that wonderful stress response that I talked about where you're good and now all of a sudden you're going to poop your pants.
Yeah. So bowel movements are funky, right? You're like, okay, you guys are telling me this, you're telling me this. Like, how do I know? When do I see a doctor? When am I supposed to worry? Right? Because we started this by saying like our gut is so connected to our entire body. All of our health comes right back to our gut. So when is it important to see a doctor? Because there are some things that do deserve medical attention. And so it's important that you contact your provider if you notice things like blood in the stool, especially if it's dark red or black, things that we mentioned earlier. If you have a sudden change in bowel habits that lasts more than 2 weeks, right? So Steph said something that had lasted for 3 days. 3 days, there's so many things that can impact your body over a 3-day period of time. Our gut microbiome can completely change in 72 hours. That's 3 days. So there's a lot that can happen in there. If you have persistent pain, cramping, or unexpected weight loss, contact your doctor. Go to, urgent care, whatever it is that you can do, ASAP. If you are noticing frequent pale, greasy, or floating stool for more than a few days, right? So if we're approaching like 5 or 6 days here, all right, this is becoming a pattern. It's not just this random thing. It's not this meal that I ate, right? If it is lasting longer than the amount of time that a meal would take to pass through you, that's when we want to call a doctor.
And if you're constantly alternating between like constipation and diarrhea and just back and forth, that can signal there's definitely like an underlying cause there. So it could be things like IBS. It could actually be thyroid issues, believe it or not, bile imbalance, or a crap ton of stress, which would also influence all 3 of those scenarios. So, Hannah, what can we do to support that healthy digestion now that we know that what's normal, what's not normal, what we're looking for? How can we have healthy digestion, a happy gut, help our metabolism, hormones, all those things?
Yeah, there are so many. So we're going to stick with our top 6. And who knows, between Steph and I, we might end up with 6 more. We'll try and be with the 6 that we have here. So number 1 is hydrate. Hydrate, 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 hydrate. If we can aim for half of our body weight in ounces of water per day, and we are consistent with that, that is like the number 1 thing that can support our digestion and a healthy gut. Water intake is important, but it's also ensuring that proper mineral intake as well while you're consuming water so that your body can actually use it, right? So think about salting your foods, including foods that are high in potassium, high in magnesium, and foods that are containing these minerals every single day into our diet, because especially if we're exercising, if we're sweating often, if we're living in warm, humid climates, then we are excreting these through our sweat, and we need those to help actually be hydrated, right? We can drink water, 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 water. But if we don't salt our food, if we're not consuming enough of the other electrolytes, like our body actually can't use it. And so hydrate with the caveat of salting your food, including potassium, magnesium, and maybe even adding an electrolyte supplement if you're somebody like me who sweats when you breathe.
Well, and things like, so for me, everyone knows I struggle with hydration. It's getting so much better than it used to be, but this is something that I've mentioned in like every challenge I've ever run. Like water is like my Achilles heel. I always struggle. But what happens is when I travel, I'm like, I need to be hydrated because it dehydrates you so much. But then I give myself a headache because I'm not getting enough of my electrolytes in and my body can't like utilize it. So what I actually do every time I travel is I buy those like little packets of pickles, the like snaps or whatever, in the airport. And I will have one of those like on my travel days specifically, because otherwise, like, because the salt from that and everything will actually help me like use and maintain that water that I'm drinking. So for me, when I travel, pickles are like specifically on my travel day for sure. I am having those every single time.
I love that. And if you're not a pickle person, even just like saltier snacks, but not like Lay's chips, but even like a meat stick, because they are going to have some more sodium in them, or like beef jerky, because like I said, like especially if they're like some of the higher quality ones, they have like good mineralized salts that they use instead of just like, oh, let me inject this with straight up sodium. So it actually helps. Citrus fruits, I love traveling with little cuties because that also helps as well. Just, multifaceted. You've got your snacks, but you're also helping to be more hydrated while you're consuming water, and you're not dehydrating yourself by like stripping yourself of those minerals. Number 2 is to fiber up, but going slowly, because if we increase too fast, then we're gonna
you don't poop.
or if you're one of those rare people who increases too fast, you're gonna have diarrhea. But I find that it's usually on the other side. But especially for soluble fiber like chia seeds, flax, oats, berries, pears, and even cooked veggies, because these things are really going to help to just allow your body and your bowels to move so much more nicely. It's going to feel so much better to have regular bowel movements when we're consuming more of this soluble fiber. Ideally, we're hitting somewhere between 25 and 35 grams of fiber per day for an optimal gut microbiome. But don't go from like super low to super high. Don't even go from like super high to super low. Some of us are going to be on the outsides of these range, like this 25 to 35. We want to like find our way to the middle. Or if you do well, eating 45 to 50 grams of fiber a day, you can stay there. But yeah, it's important to build up slowly, and we're all going to have different fiber tolerances. Steph, you're a low fiber lady.
Mm-hmm.
I breathe the amount of fiber you eat. So
yeah.
I'm very high fiber lady.
I'm like 18 seems to be my sweet spot. Like 17 to like 21-ish is like where my body's happy. It's better when I'm not stressed out, for sure. If I'm stressed and I'm eating high fiber, game over. Like I am not pooping for days. It's gonna be bad. And so for me, that's a big deal, but also paying attention to where your fiber comes from. Because I see people come in sometimes and they're getting their, 35 grams of fiber or whatever it is, but, 6 of them are coming from a protein bar, and other like 8 is coming from their carbonate bread, and they're all these highly processed fake fibers, which are not the same and it can actually be highly inflammatory. So we want to be very cautious of that. So what I like to do is like if I'm tracking food, I like I use my Fitness Pal, but if you go to like the nutrients page, so if you click on the calories at the top of however many calories you ate, and then you click on nutrients, it'll show you like grams of carbs, fat, fiber, like your salt, all of that. If you actually click on the fiber, then it'll list out where most of your, like what your highest fiber foods were. And if it's coming from like things of the label, that's where we need to like really assess. Like we want to see it coming from berries and from oats and from nuts and seeds and pears, as opposed to, something that's in a box or in a bag.
Yeah.
So something to be aware of there.
Yeah. Chronometer is the app that I use for tracking, and it does the same thing. And I love it.
Yeah.
Being able to learn those things.
It's very helpful, because then if you're like, man, I keep going over on my carbs, or man, I keep going over on fiber, or whatever nutrient you're watching, it's nice because you can see. And then if you start to struggle to hit something, it's like, okay, what was I eating before? Or the days that I'm successful, what are the foods that I'm eating that help me hit those targets versus the days that I'm not? Because then those can become your staples, and it can be very, very, very helpful. Then it's not as hard to hit your targets anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Next thing that we can do of our main 6 things for good, happy, healthy digestion, adding in fermented foods. And this would be things like sauerkraut, kefir, Greek yogurt. And there's a big asterisk here if you tolerate them. Some people do not tolerate fermented foods very well or at all. And so if that is you, do not force this just because Hannah and Steph on this call said we have to. No. Everybody's body is so different. But what we do know is that fermented foods contain natural probiotics, which help to feed the good guys in our gut. And so if you're new to fermented foods, start small, because if you add in these foods too quickly, it can lead to bloating or inflammation or diarrhea. And none of these are going to help us to have that happy digestion and happy poops and, happy gut health throughout the day. And we don't want to like deter you from being like, oh, that food doesn't work for me. So go slow, right? I'm going to use sauerkraut as an example. Do not put a mountain of sauerkraut on your plate if you have not been eating any fermented foods for a while. Literally put like a tablespoon one single baby forkful of sauerkraut on your meal and start there.
Yeah. For me, I'm just like sauerkraut and stuff. I can't do it. For me, it's just a texture yucky thing. And Taylor, if he was here, would say, I'm an adult. I'll just eat whatever because it's food. And I go, nah, it's got to taste good. It can't be like gross and slimy. Like, nope. So I'm going to get all of my fermented foods typically from my yogurt.
Yeah.
So the next one is making sure that you're eating mindfully, because in the world that we live in today, how many of us are guilty of like eating in our car or in front of a screen or like rushing through our work breaks? We are, my mom always said, this is funny because she was from Argentina, and she was always astounded at like the rush with food. Because in Argentina, it's like, people close, even in Italy, it's closed from like 2 till 4 or 5. Like, people just relax and they enjoy. And if you're at a restaurant, like, they will not ask you, like, do you want your bill? Like, you have to ask them. Like, that's just it's social, it's slow, it's meant to be enjoyed. And here it's like, we are rushing through everything. And so there's a big thing that happens when we're like slowing down and we're actually chewing thoroughly. When we're not eating under stress, it's like I said, it slows down the upper digestive tract. So now things are just sitting there. They're fermenting. You get bloating. That gets worse throughout the day. You get gassy. So we don't want to eat under stress. So something that really helps actually is literally slowing down, taking 3 to 5 really slow, deep breaths before you start eating. People are like, how much will that actually help? A lot.
So much.
All the time. And so there's like inhale through your nose, slowly exhale through your mouth before each meal. It's super simple. It seems super underrated, but we're all just like, I gotta do all these extreme things for my gut. And it's like, or we just slow down and breathe before we eat, right? It's very effective, is really great at supporting our health, regular bowel movements, lowering our stress, our cortisol, which will also help support our blood sugars. So many benefits to actually slowing down and not eating distracted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And honestly, like I mentioned earlier, like every part from food going into our mouth to coming out the other side, like every single piece of that, journey has an important aspect of like how your food gets broken down. If you take 3 to 5 slow, deep inhales through your nose before you eat, you can smell your food. You're gonna start salivating. That is so important in digestion. Like, if we don't make that connection of like, oh, there's food in front of me. I'm about to eat this food. I need to prepare to digest this food. Those 3 to 5 slow, deep breaths are like guaranteed to make that connection happen between your brain and your gut. It is so easy to breeze by that. So eating mindfully is not something to look over. It really makes such a big difference. Okay. Next, we have supporting bile flow. Bile flow, liver health, so connected. We've talked about how important your liver health is a bazillion times here. It's still important, especially with our gut health. And so how do we support bile flow? Lemon water is a super simple way to do it. Lemons are not that expensive. Cut 1 or 2 slices, squeeze them into your water, a little pinch of salt if you want some extra electrolytes. But that is a super simple thing that you can do once a day. You can do it throughout the day if you're somebody who doesn't like plain water. Adding in bitter greens, whether it is to a sandwich, to a wrap, to your salad, bitter greens, bitter foods in general help to produce bile and like release that bile into our digestive system. And then even good quality fats like olive oil can actually really help with our bile flow, because your body doesn't want to push bile into your digestive system unless there's fat in there, because bile breaks down and helps to absorb that fat. So if we're not consuming fat, well, there's not really a reason for our body to produce bile, and then things start to get backed up. So citrus fruits, bitter greens and bitter foods, good quality fats. Those are some good simple things to add in. And if you don't have a gallbladder, or you have a family history of gallbladder dysfunction, or you personally know that you have been told you've got some troubles with your gallbladder or gallstones, consider adding in an ox bile supplement, which is going to help to support that fat digestion and absorption, which is super important. And because those healthy fats are key to, keeping digestion regular and also just supporting your overall well-being, like your brain health, your joints, your hormones, being able to transport hormones to different places in your body. Super important to be able to digest those fats. So yeah, don't neglect your bile flow. Little things can make a big difference here.
And the last one is avoiding your known triggers. And so we want to pay attention to see what sets off your digestion. It is going to be different for person to person, obviously. And things to consider are dairy, processed protein powders are huge. I cannot tell you how many women we see that rely on protein bars and protein powders and, the keto wraps and the whatever protein pancakes and all those things. And people don't realize a lot of it has to do with sometimes the sugar alcohols or the different types of fibers we talked about. Those are still packed with a ton of preservatives. So just because it's high in protein doesn't necessarily it's going to be the best thing for you. And so that can really trigger people. I am one of those people. I have to be so careful with sugar alcohols and the fake fibers because my body is this ain't real, get rid of it. I blow it up super quick. My body does not like that. Highly processed carbohydrates. So, the donuts and the pastries and the cinnamon buns and all those delicious things. Fried foods. So, McDonald's, chicken wings, all those things. Even an intense jump up and down in fiber can do this for people. I get this a lot where someone's like, oh my gosh, I'm so bloated, or oh my gosh, I'm really struggling. And I look back at their food logs and it's oh yeah, you went from 10 grams of fiber one day to 20 the next and then back down to 13. Of course, we're going to have some issues there. And so this is where having data can be really helpful because then we're not oh, I think. It's, no, there's a very clear pattern here. And sometimes we need to almost reset things, almost cleanse your palate before your gut in a way. That way, when we start adding things in, we can see what's really bothering you. So for example, I'm working with a client and we're doing our Vita protocol where it's focusing on really decreasing inflammation, improving your detoxification pathways. It's been going super well for her. And she's someone who eats a lot of dairy. So we've been trying to see, adding it in, seeing how she's doing. We're slowly adding stuff in now that we've kind of gone through that protocol. And we didn't touch her calories at all. And she's still losing weight. It's been 4 weeks and she's almost down 9 pounds, which is crazy. And so now we're playing around with, okay, what are we adding and seeing how's her body responding? She went out and she had a couple beers the one night. And then obviously the scale was up for the next day, but then it came back down. So her body is quicker to recover now, which is super great. And we're kind of seeing what's the thing or the pattern that if it does stay elevated, now it's easier to tell because we have such a good solid baseline where her body is responding and she feels good and can see the changes, that if we see something go up, it's okay, this is the thing, or this is the pattern, or this much is too much for her now, right? And so it's almost nice to have a clean slate almost to kind of build from and really see what your body responds to and what those things are, because everyone is a little bit different. As I have some people that we took off of dairy and we've been adding it in slowly and it's wow, even just a half a cup of yogurt was can't do it. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And it's so different person to person. For me, chickpeas, if I have more than a tablespoon of chickpeas, I am so bloated and so gassy, right? But sometimes I'm willing to make that sacrifice because I freaking love chickpeas, but I don't eat them all the time. If I were to progressively introduce them, I would probably be okay. Hummus, not a problem. Just blended up chickpeas. But the chickpeas, problematic.
That's how the body struggles to like break it down compared to it already being like broken down in hummus, right? And that's what find things out too is like what level of processing is like, oh, my body can handle this versus it can't. And then at what point is it like too much processed? And then there's like preservatives, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna be a little bit different, right? Everyone's microbiome is so diverse.
It even makes me think of smoothies. Like some people have a hard time with certain fruits or veggies, but in a smoothie, it's totally fine. And then some other people, they do much better having foods like the actual foods, whereas in the smoothie, it's like things pass through them too quickly because their body has like a very strong digestion where like when it's already kind of broken down, it just sends them to the toilet.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's very cool. We think it's cool, obviously, because we do this, but other people are like, it's not cool. I just want to know what I can eat, what I can't eat, and move on.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to help you with. And the other thing to remember also, of course, is that during menopause, slower digestion, those shifts in your gut microbiome, your gut bacteria, and your hormones are all common and play a role together because like progesterone impacts digestion, estrogen does. Estrogen massively impacts like our gut microbiome in terms of bacteria that's in there. And so there's a lot of things happening. So it is really important to make sure you're supporting your liver, to make sure you are eating anti-inflammatory foods. That makes a huge difference. Anyone that's doing the Vita protocol right now in our coaching program is learning this very quickly. And it massively affects how you feel, how easily your body releases fat, inflammation, the fluid retention, your energy, your sleep. It's crazy. We do have a liver detoxification food guide. If anybody wants that, let us know. You can find it on my socials. I post about it quite often because it is just such a good thing to have on hand. But this is something where we do like specific meal plans with clients based on certain foods to really help flush out their system, to get their liver functioning properly, to lower that inflammation and help heal the gut too. Because again, everything is just so interconnected. And so it is a lot easier when you're starting with a clean slate to see what you can eat, what's best for you, what you can have a lot of, what you can have some of, have a little bit of, right? It's never, I can't have this. It's, okay, if I'm going to have this, it has to be a small amount because my body is not going to respond super well. So,
Yeah.
To wrap
And also
things up, your poop is just like truly your daily gut health feedback report card. The color, the consistency, how often you're going, it's all telling you a story. And it can change quick, right? So it can tell you a lot about what's going on in real time. And it's going to tell you a lot about your digestion, but also your hormones and your metabolism, how your body's functioning as a whole. If something feels off, like we mentioned, do not panic, but also don't ignore it. Be curious. Make some small adjustments in hydration, fiber, stress management. That can make a massive difference. Don't chug any Pepto. And if you're wanting a deeper dive into supporting gut health for hormones and balance and fat loss, we are going to be hosting a gut reset workshop soon. It's probably going to be early 2026, I think, just because we got a client event starting next week, which I'm so excited. And just lots of things in the works and moving to different platforms. And we've got some huge changes coming, which is really exciting, but we got a lot on our hands. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this probably less glamorous live we've ever done and shared a lot with you guys. But it is super important to talk about this. And so if that helps, I'm really glad. Hannah, is there anything you kind of want to, wrap things up with here?
Yeah. This just came to my mind when you were saying like less glamorous, but it's so real. Like we can learn so much about ourselves. My mom was visiting a couple weekends ago and like some friends came over for brunch, and of course we end up talking about poop because it's my house and it's my favorite topic of conversation. But we were talking about like things that you can learn. I had just started writing like notes for this also, but just came up in conversation because everybody knows I like talking about poop. And I was like, you'd be surprised how many people like don't know what their poop looks like. And my mom was like, I find it hard to believe. I was like, I don't, because I have these conversations all the time where people are like, I don't know. And she's like, I feel like they know, they just don't want to tell you because it's weird to have the conversation. I'm like, I will ask them very specific questions so that they can just say yes or no. And they're still just like, I don't know. Like, I've never looked. So if you learn anything, look at your poop. Turn around, look in the bowl, look at your poop, figure out what's happening because you're going to learn a lot. All right.
It can help you so much, you guys. So I hope this was helpful. I'm very tempted to post this as a podcast. I thought it was a good conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm nervous about all of Taylor's secrets that I told. So I'm going to sleep on it and decide if this will be shared publicly to thousands around the world or if
we can edit the secrets out.
Okay, awesome. Have a great night, you guys. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.